State, also has a law degree from University of Florida, and has been a founder previously and raised over $7 million for his startup Court Buddy, and now has serves as a mentor at 500 Startups, a program of which he went through, and has been working on his newest endeavor, Ownors. So for the audience, can you share a little bit of what is Ownors?
Sure. Owners is an AI-powered analytics marketplace that connects independent artists with industry executives for one-on-one virtual sessions, as well as for managed micro advances. So it's something that for artists, it allows artists to get the help that they need without necessarily signing with an independent with the record label. And it allows industry executives, record label executives, directors of licensing companies, publishing companies, to be able to give back and to provide mentorship and advice to up and coming artists.
That's awesome. How did you come up? I can get a sense from your law background how it might have come up, but if you can share with the audience how did you come up with the idea for Owners, for so in a sense, you're enabling artists to get paid, and can you talk through a little bit of like the logistics of how it works and how it came about?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I've always had an interest in is music and the arts, partly because my father, who was an engineer as well as a musician, he would always take his family. We were a family of five, so I have a sister and brother, and my mom. The five of us would always go on the road with him as he went from church to church up and down the East Coast to teach music. And so, one of the things that I learned from him was the impact that music had on people. And I've never heard anybody say to me, or say in general, there's too much music in the world, right? They may say that there's too much music coming from one artist that's being played all the time, but they don't say there's too much music in the world. And so I've witnessed firsthand the impact that music has had on people. And fast forward to my legal career. I used to be an entertainment lawyer, business lawyer, and I represented artists. I represented record labels. I represented restaurants, nightclubs, and one of the recurring themes amongst artists was, look, I feel like I'm signing my life away when I enter a deal. I feel like I'm losing control of my brand, and I don't have any ownership of my masters or my publishing. And for industry execs, they're tasked with always trying to discover the next top hit, right? The next top act. And it's really difficult for them to do that without necessarily scouring and looking at different sources. And so for us, it was about putting together a platform that allowed for artists to maintain ownership, while at the same time getting mentorship and advice without having to sign one of those, restrictive deals, and for industry execs to be able to spot the top talent and to be able to work with them. And then the micro advances piece came from artists that were like, look, I'm making money from my songs, but I still want to continue to market and promote them. And I know that if I sign a record deal, that's going to be an advance that comes my way, but I don't necessarily want to do that because I'm also losing other things as well in the process, like, ownership of masters and publishing. So that's one of the things we took into consideration when we decided to build Owners. And, that's the backstory and how Owners came to be.
Got it. Can you describe a little bit more for people who aren't familiar with it's not buying a song. When you talk about in advance, like who's paying for what in your current model? Like how does it work?
Yeah, sure. So the way it works is when an artist signs up on our platform, they have to connect all of their digital streaming accounts, so music streaming accounts. So that's Spotify, SoundCloud, Deezer, Amazon Music, Apple Music, wherever they're streaming their music, they have to connect those accounts. And then what we do is our algorithms will look at the different streaming platforms that they've connected to our platform, and we will determine how much revenue they're bringing in. And then based on that, they apply for a micro advance, and the micro advances are from $500 to up to $5,000, at least the way it's currently built. Um, and based on what they're asking for and the recoupment period, so it could be 90 days, it can be a year. We would then offer them a micro advance, again anywhere between $500 to $5,000, and it's paid back through the revenue from their songs. So if you think about like the journey, right? So it's like you create the song as an artist, you have to then market it and promote the song, but you need the funds to do that. So our model gives them the funds to do that. And by giving them the funds, they continue to make more money, which is more revenue. And then the revenue it goes to paying back or recouping the micro advance for us.
Got it. And then the way and then once like you're advancing the payment, and then you're going to the platforms to basically get the payment for the artist, right? Is that how?
Correct. Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, and when you were working on this concept, can you talk a little bit about what well, before we go into that and talk a little bit about how you built it, let's talk about James. How did you go from being a lawyer to now being to now being a serial entrepreneur? If you could walk us through that journey and maybe stop along the court buddy, that your first major startup.
Yeah, sure. So I think my granddad, my dad's dad was an entrepreneur. He owned a store, a grocery store in Richmond. My father made an attempt at being an entrepreneur. Again, like I mentioned before, selling music and touring. And so I think it was something that was really just always there. I just didn't realize it. And so I think my first foray into entrepreneurship was actually before I became a lawyer. And that was in college. We had, and going back to music again. So in college, I was working at a computer lab, and I would work the third shift, which was 12 to 8, midnight to 8 a.m. And what I noticed was there were a lot of students. So the campus, Winston-Salem State, there was about 5,000 students that lived on campus. And this was around the time that Napster came out, LimeWire, which were, music streaming, like, peer-to-peer music sharing platforms. And, they were, the students would complain about, they wanted an album, but it was either sold out or it was too far away from campus. It was a 30-minute drive or 45-minute drive. And most of the kids that stayed on campus, they didn't have cars. So they would rely on public transportation, or they just wouldn't leave the campus. And so, I would hear these conversations. I would talk to kids. I was the editor-in-chief of my campus newspaper. And I would just ask them like, hey, well, how much would you pay if I work in a computer lab and I just, made a CD for you with your favorite artists? And, they would say, $5, $7. And I actually did the math at the time. I had 30 computers that were just empty, and I would use every computer to burn these CDs. And, I was actually doing better than I was working from 12 to 8, right? In terms of revenue. So that was probably my first foray into entrepreneurship. After I became a lawyer, I actually worked at a couple big firms, and then eventually I had my own law firm. And so that was, I guess, my second foray into entrepreneurship, because one of the things you realize as an entrepreneur, at least early on, is that you have to wear so many hats. You have to be the accountant, you have to be, the salesman, you have to, build the product or hire someone to build the product. So you're wearing a lot of hats. And so as a lawyer, I had to be the rainmaker. That's the term for bringing in clients as a lawyer. I had to, keep the books. I had to, go to court. I had to represent my clients. I had to draft all the motions and pleadings. So I did, everything, as a solo attorney. And, and then that led to Court Buddy, because in the process of me being a solo attorney and trying to figure out how to get clients, I was spending a lot of time at the courthouse. And, right before I went in front of a judge, I would have people come up to me that were nervous, scared, afraid of going in front of the judge. They didn't understand the legal process. And they would say, look, hey, are you a lawyer, sir? And, my response is, yes, yes, I'm a lawyer. Well, do you mind helping me with something? I just want someone to look over my paperwork, right? And so they would show me their paperwork, and it was just all sorts of just, mumbo jumbo written down. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, they're about to lose a house. They're about to, lose their kids. They're about to get a money judgment against them. And so I would always ask them, like, why'd you wait so long? Why didn't you just hire a lawyer in the beginning? And their response was, look, I'm not going to pay $5,000, $10,000 for a retainer. I'm not going to pay $300 to $500 an hour. But I'm willing to pay you $200, a flat fee, to go in front of this judge right now. And, and this is kind of like a segue into the creation of Court Buddy. But, my mindset at the time was, no, I'm a lawyer. I need to bring you into my office. I need to, you need to sign a retainer, and you need to pay me a certain amount of retainer, and I need to bill you by the hour. But I was hearing this hundreds of times. And so it became a situation where it was like, maybe I'm thinking about this wrong. Maybe I need to think outside of the lawyer box, and maybe I need to start thinking about the clients. Because on the flip side of that, we had my colleagues, the attorneys, that were saying to me, man, I can't find clients. How am I gonna find clients? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I just met 10 right here before I went in front of the judge, potential clients. So what am I missing here? And so that's how, I guess my first major foray into entrepreneurship came with the creation of Court Buddy.
Awesome, awesome. And yeah, I met you when you were fundraising, and I was working and was really excited to connect. Amazing like platform enabling people to just pay for representation for a clear like period of time, and rather than do the retainer and an hour and have like lack of transparency and how funds are spent. So it really created transparency in the industry and access. So I was excited about that, and you all were growing very fast.
Right.
During that time, I know you raised $7 million from and had NFX. Can you talk a little bit about that journey of fundraising? One of the like not many entrepreneurs go off to raise 7 million plus in venture capital. So how did you accomplish that, and what led you to do that?
Yeah, it's you said it right. I mean, it's definitely a journey. I think it starts with being able to just create something, and to see how it can progress, right? So I think the journey really began with discovering the opportunity. Like I mentioned, being at the courthouse and finding out that maybe I could solve a problem for the Miami community. Not thinking bigger, just thinking about like the Miami community, trying to solve a local problem or serve a local need. And then what happened was we started getting interest from other markets. So we started in Miami. Then the rest of the state of Florida started becoming interested. The Florida bar, who I've had, I'm a member of, but also had connections with other people on the board of governors, things like that. They started asking me, oh, what are you building? This is a great access to justice tool, right? Access to justice platform. And then the interest from investors started coming. And so the journey really started with creating the platform with my wife. And then, to be honest, the first few meetings we had with investors were not so great. We weren't really familiar with the investing or the fundraising process. Actually, to be honest, we weren't really interested in fundraising. We were just interested in continuing to build the platform. And at some point, what happened was, we want to invest in your company. And our first outside check came from this organization called the American Entrepreneurship Organization, or American Entrepreneurship Award. And it was a interest-free loan, and it was for about $12,000. And it was part of an award that we won. And that was kind of like the springboard, because one of the directors of the American Entrepreneurship Award had also gone through Finder Startups too. And so because he had gone through Finder Startups too, he said, look, I think this would be a good opportunity for you to go through an accelerator that I am, I value highly. And I think that if you apply, you have a good shot of making it. And so the first time we applied, we got rejected. I think there was something along the lines. Again, we didn't really understand the fundraising process, so it was like you need to come back once you have your KPIs shored up, you really understand your traction, and you're able to articulate that. And so the second time we applied, and we ended up getting in, and that was sort of the springboard to raising a larger $1 million round, and that was in 2017. And then from there, the following year, we raised another 6 million, and that was our Series A for Court Buddy. So that's how we raised 7 million. But the journey was certainly uh, it was full of a lot of no's. We had about 200. We reached out to 200 investors. We had 193 no's, 7 yeses. And the reasons were all over the place. We I'm sure you know this stat of about 1% of Black and Brown founders receive VC funds or VC capital for their startups. And so that whole process just really taught us the importance of persevering, ignoring the stats, and just focusing on what's ahead, and taking step by step, going brick by brick to the not just the fundraising process, but to also building the startup too.
I love that because you talk about people like, oh, I did 100 meetings, and you're like, no, I did 200 plus meetings and 7 yeses, right? And like
Right.
getting people ready and confident to go the distance and just say, hey, like if fewer is not going to work, you just got to do more, and just being ready for that.
Absolutely. You just have to, I mean, at the end of the day, um, you just have to say to yourself, look, regardless of how many no's I get, I know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what happened. And, we would have done 1,000 meetings and we could have received 999 no's. We were just looking for that one yes and that one believer. And we knew that things would take care of itself from there.
Awesome. And what led you to go from building Court Buddy to now leaving and going back to media? And I would say you ended back where you started, law and media, right? So
Right.
so what
Right.
led you to go back to law and media?
Yeah. I mean, literally, my wife and I, we looked at Court Buddy and we said, look, can this company now be okay without us being involved in the day to day? And my wife, she wanted to. I don't know if you knew this, Sergio, but her father passed away when she was 7. And so for all these years, fast forward, she's in her 30s now, but she's always wanted to, figure out a way to help out kids that are going through or have gone through something similar to what she went through. So in her case, she didn't know where to turn when her father passed. She didn't know who to talk to. Her mother, my mother-in-law, had her own internal, battles trying to figure things out and make sense of things. And so she wanted to write a book, and she also wanted to do something in the children's grief space. And once Court Buddy was built to a point where we had, great leaders that we hired over the years that could, essentially take the reins, we decided to go back, in my case, back to my roots, like you mentioned, media and entertainment and law. And for Christina, really trying to solve a problem for kids around the world through not just her book, but also through her platform, Guardian Lane, so which is a video content platform connecting licensed counselors with grieving families and their kids. So that's what she's working on right now, full time. I'm working on Ownors full time, and that was really the thinking and the process behind moving on.
Awesome. And now that you're at Owners and building Owners, can you share a little bit more? I want to dive in on, as you're building out the platform, you've done it once before, right? And you're building it out from scratch. How did you go the reason I ask is, as many of the audience members are aspiring entrepreneurs. So how did you go from this idea of making sure artists are empowered, right? To now, building Owners. What are some of the steps you took to get to where you are now?
Sure. So I guess it started even before I did anything in terms of building a platform. It was surveys that I did with artists. Even before that, I wouldn't call it acting, but I was on the set and I was casted as a security guard in a show called Burn Notice. And if
That's
you
awesome.
yeah, if you've ever been on a set of a show like Burn Notice or any other show, these are like 18, 19-hour days. And so there's a lot of wait and hurry up and wait moments. So you're waiting for the next scene to be shot, or you're waiting for your moment to get in front of the camera. And so if before you get called, you're like in this room and you're talking. For me, I was talking to a lot of people, talking to a lot of the other actors and actresses, and and this was years ago. I was in my this was 2008, 2009. So this is about 11 years ago, and so I've just held all of those discussions in the back of my mind all these years, and earlier this year. Fast forward to earlier this year, I just spent a lot of time talking to artists. I did surveys. I was on the phone with them. I said, look, what are your problems? What are your roadblocks? I want to help me understand what you're going through. And I just matched what they told me to what I remember hearing when I was either practicing law, representing artists, or when I was on a set of Burn Notice and these other shows. And then the other part was just making sure you hire the right people, hire the right team, right? So that's a process that takes time. It was a long process. I'm of the opinion you should take your time to hire the right people, because you don't want to make that mistake of not hiring the right person, and then things go wrong, and you have to go back through that process over again, back to the drawing board. So I took time to learn all about the team that I wanted to hire. I took time to write the JD out to figure out, like, who do I really want? Like, who's my ideal person to be the VP engineering or to be the CTO? Who's my ideal person to be head of product? Do I want them to have a Silicon Valley startup background? Do I want them to have a Facebook or Google background? Should they have a sharp eye on product? Should they have a great eye for detail? Or do they focus on speed, right? So those things I had to like really think about, and I put together the JD, the job description, and then I put it out to the world. I mean, the great thing about the 21st century is we have tools like LinkedIn. We have so many different ways to reach out. We have our own networks that we can reach out to, and so the team kind of came together through that. In terms of like our board and advisors, that really came through previous relationships. One of our board members is the VP, executive vice president of film production at Warner Brothers, and she was also an investor in Court Buddy as well. So a lot of our investors, as well as some of our board members, came from previous relationships, and I just leaned heavily on them to help put the team together, and then everything else becomes about the culture. Everyone's looking at you as the leader. What do you believe in? For me, I believe in speed. I believe in getting product to the market, letting the market tell us, if this is something that is viable, and essentially validating the proof points that came out of those surveys. So that's my focus as a founder. And I'm not afraid to pivot. I'm not afraid to make iterations as needed. And, so I've always maintained a bit of flexibility. And I think it was easier this time because I've already gone through like all the mistakes, right? I mean, when you've gone through this process before, you've already made a lot of mistakes, and mistakes aren't really mistakes. They're really just learning opportunities, right? So it's like you get your best MBA by actually doing it, going to the school of hard knocks.
Love it. And
Yeah.
I mean, you've been working on this for 5 months now. Can you, or probably about 6? Can you share more? What can you share a little bit about the traction? Like, what have you accomplished thus far in terms of revenue, users, and those metrics, and some of the artists on the platform?
Yeah, sure. We have about 400 artists on the platform right now. There are all booking sessions with industry execs on our platform. The industry execs are A&Rs. They are directors at record labels like Warner Music Group, Universal, and 411 licensing. We've had a couple of deals get done, and deals being artists actually getting signed to deals. We've had artists in terms of the feedback. They've been able to figure out a few marketing tips to maybe leverage YouTube or create a video that they can use in tandem with the launch or the release of a song. And so in terms of, I mean, I'm not going to go into a lot of the revenue detail, but in terms of just the actual numbers, right now we just launched our beta in September and we're at 370% month over month growth. It's still early, but that's obviously very promising in terms of our growth amongst the users on our platform. And it's amazing because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but it's a testament to artists as well as industry execs that want to figure out what to do, what's the next step in their career, right? And so for artists, it's like, I don't want to stop learning. I want to continue to get better. I want to stay in the studio and put out more songs, but I also want to figure out how to have commercial appeal. And so for industry execs, it's like, yeah, I'm writing a book, or I'm also shooting a movie. I'm part of a movie or something, but I can still take time to help out artists that I know could one day be a mega successful artist. And I want to be able to point back and say, this artist right here had a meeting with me at Owners, and I signed him, or I managed his advances, and now look at where this artist is today.
Yep. Well, please don't stop the music. That's what everyone's saying while while you're
Absolutely.
especially during quarantine, uh,
Right.
as during the pandemic. So no, it's definitely incredible, especially now that artists are really leaning more heavily on digital sales, since there are less concerts that are able to happen. So applaud you for the work. So what is
And
next for? Oh,
one
good.
thing,
Yeah.
and keep in mind. So a lot of times people are thinking that this is something that happened as a result of the pandemic, but these were trends that were happening prior to the pandemic, right? The pandemic just accelerated it. So a lot of times, just for the listeners, the aspiring entrepreneurs out there, a lot of time timing in the market is very important, right? If you can figure out, if you can look at trends and you can say, okay, well, this is where the market is heading. There's a famous quote by Wayne Gretzky. He says that I don't skate to where the puck is on the ice. I skate to where I think the puck is going to be. And that's how I am as an entrepreneur. I don't think about where things are right now. I look at trends and I say, of course I could be wrong sometimes. I mean, but I make my best guess based on the data to figure out and determine where the puck is going to be on the ice. And so that's what I did with Owners. I said, okay, well, it looks like there's a trend away from this notion that I can get signed, or I want to get signed. There's a gravitation towards, I can do this myself, but I still need the help, right? And so and at the same time maintaining ownership, right, of your masters and your publishing. So that, I just wanted to mention that because I know there's aspiring entrepreneurs on the call. And I think it's important to know that thinking about the timing in the market is just as important as other factors too.
Beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you can share a little bit with how do artists and individuals find Owners?
Sure. Ownors.com, OWNORS.com. We're on Twitter as well. Twitter is, our handle is @Owners. Facebook is @Owners Inc. And IG is also @Owners Inc.
Awesome. So, well, thank you everyone for watching, and thank you, James, for being our guest tonight. So again, everyone that's watching, this was Everyone Live. James Jones, CEO and founder of Owners, and a serial entrepreneur, blessing us with some of his wisdom and experience. So thanks again, James, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.